Hi everybody. In this video we are going to discuss about linked list implementation in C. We are going to just make a start to the linked list implementation. So how a linked list will look like is, if there are 5 elements, then there will be 5 nodes. We will specifically call these as nodes, and there will be 5 nodes holding each of the element, and we will be knowing only the first node, right? We will be knowing only the address of the first node. You can compare this to the analogy which we were discussing in the previous video. That is, you are going to have the address of the first guest alone, right? And if you want to move to the next rooms and all, then you have to start from the first room only. It's like that, okay? And this is how it's going to look like. When you look at this, when you are going to implement this, as I told, we will call them as node. If you closely look at node, there are 2 parts in it, right? When you have more than one part, then you have to go for structures. So how I am going to represent a node is by a struct, okay? Let me call it as a struct node, and there are 2 members in it. One is going to be the data part, and in this case the data part is going to be an integer. So let me tell int data, okay? And what about the address part? Here actually this is the address of the next node, okay? And what address is stored here? When we tell address, we refer to pointers, okay? We have to declare a pointer. If you have to declare a pointer, the data type should be accompanied by a star. Fine, okay? So how will I declare a pointer is by using a star along with data type. If I am going to store address of an integer, then I have to tell int star a. If I am going to store address of a floating point variable, I have to tell float star f, and so on. Now when we look at here, we want to store the address of a node, okay? Please do not think that this arrow is pointing to integer, so it is address of integer. No, it is address of the node, entire node, okay? So it should be like I am going to have a pointer to the node, and I should give a name for this. What name I am going to give is, since it is going to hold the address of the next node, let me call it as next, okay? And this is particularly a single linked list. There are variations for linked list that we will be discussing later, right? And the first operation what we are going to discuss is the CreateList function. So the objective of this function is to initialize the list. So initialize the list in the sense you are going to make it as an empty list, right? How an empty list will look like, that should be taken care in the CreateList function. So when we look at this linked list implementation, there is only one member for the list, right? That is head. And for an empty list, head should be equal to null, okay? So we have to just make the head to be null. That is the job that we are going to do in CreateList. So let us come for the implementation, and let us include the header files, okay? So include stdio.h, and I am going to include one more file, that is stdlib. This is because basically linked list involves dynamic memory allocations, and that is present in stdlib. And what should I do? I was telling that I need a representation for each node. I am going to use structures, isn't it? So we have to give struct node, but the point is structures will not define a data type in C naturally, okay, by default. You have to type define it, otherwise every time you have to use this keyword struct for the compiler to indicate that it is a data type defined. So to avoid it, we are going to use this type def struct node you are telling, and when you type define, you have to give another name. Let the name be also node. It is possible to give the same name, but in the case of C++, the story is different. You can just give struct. But in the case of C, you have to type def it explicitly, right? And there are going to be 2 data members. One is going to be the data part, other one is going to be the address part, address of node, right? And its name is next. But at this point of time, in line number 11, it is not a type defined, okay? At line number 12, end of 12 only, node is type defined. So we have to give struct here. Additionally, we have to give struct here. Hope that's clear. And next what we are going to do is we are going to create a structure for representing the list. So let me call it as L list. Okay, and what is going to be the member of that? There is only one member, that is the head. So let us declare it. Okay, and let us write the main. Okay, let us write the main, and I am going to tell L list L, right? When I tell like this, what will happen? What will happen is a memory will be allocated for L. Okay, a memory will be allocated for L. So when you look at L, it's a structure variable, and there is only one member, that is a pointer, and it is called as head, right? So a memory to store head will be allocated, right? And C and C++ do not initialize their memory, just recall that. Okay, so some garbage value is only present here. Okay, we know it as garbage, but the system doesn't know it as a garbage. It's just a bits, zeros and ones, which can be dereferred as, or which can be calculated as a address. Okay, so we should be very careful. Right, so your things are ready. Next we are going to write the CreateList function. When you look at this CreateList function, actually it is not going to return anything. And what about the parameter? A list should be passed to it. That's what the list which should be initialized should be passed to the CreateList function. And how it should be passed is by address. Why by address? Because if some changes are being made in the function, that should get reflected in the main also, right? So let us pass it by address. So let us tell L head equal to null, right? We are initializing to null. Okay, so your create list is done. Our next function what we are going to write is IsEmpty function. So when you look at the IsEmpty function, the input taken will be the list, which should be checked for emptiness. How will we tell that the list is empty? Is if its head is null, then we will tell it is empty, and we will tell not empty otherwise. Okay, so the return type is int, because in C there is no bool, right? So I am giving us int, and IsEmpty is the function which will take the list as an argument. Please note that it's sufficient to pass it by value, because in IsEmpty we are just going to check. It's going to just read the value, it's not going to make any modifications, right? So you are going to check here if, okay, if head, right, head equal to null, if head equal to null, either you can check like this, or you can use a shorthand form like if not of head, because null value is false, null is false. Okay, so not of false, if head is null, it will be false, not of false will be true, right? So the condition will become true. That's the idea behind that, and otherwise I am going to return false. Since the body of the if contains return, there is no need of putting the else, right? And everything is ready now. What we are going to do is we are just going to call the IsEmpty function first. I am just creating a variable L. Okay, so this L contains head, and that head is not going to have null value. Please understand that it is going to contain the garbage value, and I am checking for emptiness, right? And your emptiness is going to tell true only if that is null, right? So let me tell %d returned by IsEmpty, and IsEmpty of L, right? We can pass it by value, so let us pass like this and check the code. Okay, let me check that it's stdlib. Yeah, the problem is I have missed giving here a list. Okay, in type def I have missed it, so let's see how many. Yeah, head, I should not use it as head simply, I have to tell L dot. Okay, Y dot is, it is passed by value only, and I told that it's not present, bool is not present, so you have to return 1 for true and 0 for false. Okay, and is redefined. Yeah, I have returned already a main. Okay, okay, fine. Yeah, the main is already returned below, right? So what we are doing here, the same thing exactly. You are creating a list and you are just going to print the value returned by IsEmpty. Okay, so let us run it, and what you see here is 0 is returned by IsEmpty. 0 is returned means it is telling false, but we didn't put anything inside the list. Why it is telling false? This is because head is not initialized, it is having garbage value. So IsEmpty thinks that it is not null, so it is telling like that. So let me call the CreateList function where we initialize and then print the value, right, of IsEmpty, what is returned. Now we can see that 0 returned by IsEmpty before calling the CreateList function, and after calling it you will see that 1 is returned, indicating that the list is empty, right. So I will be sharing the code in GitHub. Please follow it from here, then only you will be able to follow the rest of the implementation also. Thank you.